Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folare. Hope we meet you well. And then people can't deny the floods that have devastated and continue to devastate parts of the country. It's just very much in our face. And so let's talk about that today, because there's been all sorts of commentary on the matter. People have naturally been blaming those in charge, but perhaps, not exactly so. In any case, my guest this morning is Mr. Ogunlade Olamide Martins. He's the CAPA Program Manager, Climate Change and Extractive Governance. That's a lot of grammar. In fact, the CAPA, in case you were thinking like I initially thought, it has nothing to do with Capa de Alberto, not the construction company. In fact, CAPA is an acronym for Corporate Activity and Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa. You're very welcome. Thank you very much, Olamide, for coming on the program. This is an area that you also have a keen interest and you've been looking at. And but the newest thing to come to the fore is that people, maybe because they are not in the inner circle and don't really know about it, have been blaming the Lagdo Dam in Cameroon. Even people as high up as senators, who you would think would know, they themselves had to be set right by the Minister for Water Resources that, as a matter of fact, it's not Lagdo Dam. In fact, he's attributed it, he says this is not, it's in all the papers. He says that, as a matter of fact, the main reason, and I'm quoting directly from a news report here, this one happens to be from the Tribune, although Tribune doesn't have an exclusive on the matter. He says it is not the main reason you have flood in the country. The tributaries of River Benue are the main cause, and this year the rains have been unprecedented. Just as a sort of a paragraph. But I saw you nodding there. So you evidently, you weren't among those that were erroneously thinking that it's the Cameroonians that just did things anyhow. They just opened their dams anyhow and they put us in this problem. Not so when you get an informed perspective, right?
Yeah, you're right. And it's also my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
Well, I work with Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa, an NGO based here in Nigeria with headquarters in Lagos and then a branch in Abuja. Basically, we, engage, corporations to deliver. By deliver, I mean to also, speak truth to them, to be able to do their
comply with their mandate.
Comply with their mandate without jeopardizing the interests of an average Nigerian. So to the subject, I think the perception out there is that the flood that we are currently experiencing is due to the release of water in Cameroon, Lagos to be precise. But I think it's actually more than that. Basically, there are three types of flood. We have the fluvial flooding, which is caused when there is an excess, release of water, having, water body overflowing their boundaries. And then you have the coastal, flooding, like the case that we currently have experienced in Cameroon, releasing water. And then there's supposed to be a reservoir in Nigeria that should accommodate these excesses of water. And then we have the pluvial flooding. This pluvial flooding is basically traceable to when we experience heavy rainfall or excessive rainfall. But our scenario is quite
because
different.
all these things you're saying, maybe you have a degree in meteorology or geography. I think both of those are related.
Well, I studied geology and applied geophysics.
Okay, but basically, all floodings are not the same.
They are not.
And they're not caused by the same thing.
No, they are not. But in the case of Nigeria, it's a very funny scenario. It's like a combination of...
Because we were speaking before coming on there, and you said all those three things that you've just explained, that Nigeria is in the unique position of having all three of them at the same time.
Yeah, and that is what we are seeing currently. It's a case of water overflowing in boundaries in the case of Niger and River Benue, and it's a case of us not having the capacity to manage the excesses of water being released by Cameroon, and it's also a case of heavy rainfall.
Okay, well, okay. Okay, as a matter of fact, sorry to interrupt you, but the program, as you know, is an interactive one. So Tony has called in from the UK. Good morning, Tony.
I would like to call on the...
Are you all right?
Mr. Yored?
Yes, good morning, sir.
Hello, Dr. Yored.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Yored. For me personally, I would want Nigerians' matter is always a very terrible one. Can we, all the time, when something like this that is very terrible, when it happens, can we know exactly those that are responsible, not all of us, those that are responsible, call them at the studio or wherever they are, ask them why they kept quiet or why they are not doing anything to sort out that major problem. I bet you that by next year, you will still be discussing this issue again, or nothing will start nothing will start immediately. You will discuss this issue again all the time.
I hear you, Tony. I hear you, Tony. But as you know, the floods are seasonal.
Who are responsible?
It's just that we've been surprised by the magnitude of this one. Floods are seasonal, as you know, Tony. They're seasonal.
There are those that are responsible for when an issue or when a problem happens. There are those that are responsible. Ask them, interview them. So why were they careless? Why did they not do what they're supposed to be doing? I bet you, the way you are discussing it now, I'm interested, I like it, but I bet you it will happen again. And nothing will be done.
Well, I hear you, Tony, and I know you're angry. But just by the way, Tony, I hear you, and I know you're angry, and thank you very much for calling in. But one of the papers in front of me this morning, contrary to what you're saying that they're not doing anything about it, floods, I think, is the Vanguard that's in front of me this morning. It says, in relation to floods, account for 1 trillion naira ecological votes, and the federal government has tasked states. So that's far from not doing anything about it. Now, it might not be enough, but I quickly needed to get it in there that, we can still talk about it. You can still be critical of them, but it's not that they're not doing anything. 1 trillion naira ecological vote, it was, included in the budget, and the federal government has actually tasked governments, states that will receive chunks of the funds. The presidency has said that they must account for how expenditure goes on those funds. But thank you very much for calling in. And I understand you, Tony, and I identify with you because those pictures are harrowing that we're seeing. People have been wiped out, people's dwellings, property. We understand it. But for all of that, floods still are seasonal. Maybe, as Tony was saying, perhaps, Olamide, people should, what could have been done?
Well, I think it's also very important to provide a very good background.
Sure.
It's actually beyond a government. Of course, we can hold government responsible for not doing well, when it comes to managing the rapid urbanization that we currently face in Nigeria. But like I did mention, there are some cases of flooding that is beyond, institutional responses. It has to do with, people also taking up responsibilities to be able to curtail some of these excesses, Well, let me also say that about 55% of Nigerians are currently residing in the urban centers. And then what you see presently in cities like Lagos, Port Harcourt, and Abuja is that drainages are now being turned to dumping sites. So it's beyond. Okay,
so it's a combination.
It's a combination of so many failures.
Okay.
Really.
We have a video report. Let's take that, and then we'll come back and continue the conversation.
With just a few months left to the end of the Buhari administration, the federal government is out again to talk about its successes and showcase its achievements. The inaugural series of the presentation of the Buhari administration's scorecard begins with the successes achieved in the area of critical infrastructure and development. The Minister of Works and Housing begins his presentation with an explanation of government's response to the flood situation currently ravaging many parts of the country. He says the government is already taking stock of the level of damage caused and awaits a final report from its field controllers to determine the next line of action.
In the last 2 weeks, all our controllers in the 36 states have been mandated to go out, measure, assess, document, evaluate costs of replacement, rehabilitation, where necessary.
The minister goes on to reel out the successes achieved so far in the area of infrastructure and also reveals the level of work reached on ongoing projects.
These are sections of the Abuja-Kaduna-Kanu highway. This is a 375-kilometer highway. It is the largest project this government is currently undertaking in cost. It is about 700 plus billion naira.
The Minister of Information and Culture says this series is not only an avenue to prove to Nigerians that the government has truly performed, but also to silence those who have tried every means possible to downplay the achievements of the Buhari administration.
Despite attempts in some circles to downplay the achievements of this administration, I have no scintilla of doubt that history will be fairer and posterity will be kind to us.
The government is convinced that it has implemented high-impact projects that will leave a lasting legacy in the sands of time and also meet the yearnings and aspirations of Nigerians across the length and breadth of the country. TJ Swadio, TVC News, Abuja.
Okay, well, thank you for that report. It went out earlier. I'm sorry that I had to interrupt you, but as a matter of fact, it's sort of fortuitous in the sense that Tony was just saying that nobody is doing anything and that this time next year, we'll be talking about this. And there's a sense in which Tony is not wrong, because when you look at the problems, it might not be this particular one, but other people have also phoned in to complain that we keep on talking about these things and we don't seem to be getting actions. But you were trying to explain that it's even out of the hands of government.
Well, maybe not entirely.
Okay.
I also want to hold government very strongly
Okay.
because I don't know how to explain or justify why the Hausandawa Dam in Adamawa State has been ongoing for about 40 years and nobody is talking about it.
That's the one that the Cameroonians are
Yeah.
reported to have said, we expected you to have completed this.
For more than 40 years. And the dam
If
is
that
still-
had been done, this wouldn't be happening.
Maybe to an extent to curtail the
It
type
would-
of flooding
Okay.
that is related to that, the coastal flood that I mentioned earlier. But of course, you have flooding due to heavy rains as well, and flooding due to river banks overspreading their boundaries. You know, those are the other types of funding. But I think basically, like I did mention earlier, 55% of Nigerians are living in the urban settlement or urban areas like Lagos, Port Harcourt, Abuja. Only about 45 are in the rural, settings, And then you see these people contributing heavily, to the menace of waste that we generate in these, urban setups. As a matter of fact, drainages are now being turned to dumping sites. So people too need to be abreast of the fact that they're also contributing, to flooding. I'm not going to exonerate government. And I'm not going to,
But even our habits.
yeah,
as
our own
citizens,
habits is also very, very important.
because we have this idea that you throw your refuse into the gutter and it flows out of your sight.
Exactly.
You have no consideration for where it's going and the damage it's going to do up front.
Exactly. Another point to also note is, we see a lot of reports from NIMET, from the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, issuing warnings and cautions. But I think something is still missing. There are a lot of coordinations that needs to be done. Apart from these cautions that you give on a monthly or weekly basis, or as the case may be, maybe daily basis, how are you coordinating with government agencies that should avert some of these emergencies that you've preempted? I think that's also a point that we should also consider. Are you quantifying the devastations? Are you holding people accountable? You just come up to say that 27 states will go under the waters. How are you working with government of those states to ensure that measures are put in place to curtail some of these excesses? And then how are you engaging
But when you look at the extent of this, Alamide, that's why when you adjusted my statement that it's too big a problem for government when you look at this matter, you said you wouldn't entirely absolve them. But you look at the situation, you look at the height of these floods, from a combination of factors, as you've said, one cannot be seen to be trying to, exonerate government. But what could have been done? I remember in Lagos here, for instance, going back, the minister, what we're just seeing the Minister Fashola there, when he was governor in Lagos, he tried to tackle the flooding in Lagos, and he did many documentaries showing what you've just said, that, look, people's habits are clogging up the waterways.
Yeah.
The Sanwo-Olu administration has continued to keep an eye on it. I think they released an advisory just the other day that so many areas, although the advisory said people should move to higher ground.
To where?
Now, how that is going to happen? Move to where?
Yeah,
where are you moving to? Mazi Okoroafo, good morning to you, sir.
Now, you see, this issue of flood, it's not something that would have taken this shape. Now, if you take back, you see that after the civil war between Nigeria and Biafra, during that civil war, Nigeria entered into an agreement with the Nigerian army, in short, the military entered agreement with Cameroon. That was why you see Cameroon, when that issue of block the agreement, the dam, they refused, because that Bakassi, that was the beginning of the system. Later, the court gave the people the upper hand that they won the case at the international court. So that is why the bad issue between Nigeria and Cameroon started. Now, Shehu Shagari planned dam to cover the Lake Chad and develop Benue and other areas. But nothing happened. Now, if those areas were taken care of that very time, let's watch Shehu Shagari's regime, all these things will not happen. Now, even right now, the so-called relief materials are being hijacked by the elite. I saw on your screen there when people were showing, let's say the Bayelsa and River State, when they were complaining that even the food they served them were tasteless. But the government said that they have given out, I repeat, given out something billions of naira. Now, if government are giving something billions of naira to cushion the food, why must people be serving human beings tasteless food? Well, my answer to this who are hijacking that big materials, they are now placing what we call an international cost on themselves and their family. They should go back and do the needful. The best option for Nigeria, what we should talk about solution. One, the federal government, we have huge geopolitical zones, they must build dams. Two, all the states with river, they should start at the arranging on how to dredge all these rivers. Three, areas where the people have reclaimed land, natural land, they blocked it, electoral river, they blocked it and build houses. Statistics or records, research will show that in 20 years, 30 years, but people have come back this year that all those reclaimed areas, it will not reach 20 years, that in 10 years time, 15 years time, all those people will now turn to another disaster to human beings, which means Nigeria should stop reclaiming areas which are water line or any place that has to do with it because we want to build houses on the river. Okay. They should stop claiming that. They should go back and look for a neutral place and build houses. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, Mazi Okoroa, for calling in from Arochukwu there. I suppose a conversation like this will bring up all these ancillary issues, not excluding, what is that thing? Climate warming, global warming. And, well, Mazi also brought up something that, you know, in spite of the land mass of Nigeria, people are still they're still busy reclaiming certain areas because they're thought to be, you know, prize areas. So I suppose all of these, no matter how small, must also factor into it because we're talking about habits of our people now. The very habit that the local woman, you know, in some areas doesn't think anything about emptying her basket of refuse into a gushing gutter, and it just goes out of her sight. We were talking about that when I had to interrupt you.
Yes, I want to also, you know, agree very strongly with the point that the last caller, Mazi, you know, made, and I think it's a very, very valid point. Yes, what can government do? I think it's actually a tripod actions expected from government right now. Government should invest massively in awareness creation, you know, to be able to address the issue of people not being aware of what to do and how to do what to do. And I also think that government needs, across all levels now, the federal, the state, and even the local government should be able to come up with an exclusive mapping of flood-prone areas in their domains. I'm not sure, relying heavily on the information from NIMET, basically, which is good, should be holistic, would be, good enough for my state in Ekiti State to also, have its own mapping of, flood-prone areas. By doing that, state government could respond by mayors aim at addressing some of these, newly found issues. For instance, now, if you look at the NIMET report, it's just vague. 37 states will go under the waters. What is the devastation level expected? What are the people expected to do? I mean, explicitly, what should Lagos do?
What will Lagos do? Lagos has advised people, what we were saying, move to where?
Move to where?
It is just by the grace of God that they are where they are.
The same Lagos that is saying that move out of lowland, to much higher land. It's the same Lagos that is giving concessions to corporations to also, reclaim lands, for corporate interest. So there needs to be a clearly defined agenda as to how we respond to flooding. Having a good understanding of the peculiar situation of each state. You can't compare what Kogi State is facing, being a confluent state, what Lagos State is facing, being a state surrounded by water, and to what Ekiti State is facing, being a state surrounded by hills. So we feel these impacts differently. And so our response measure should also be different. Yeah, I agree that government should, monitor what the ecological fund is being spent on, to build spillways, to build, water blockages system, to even expand the drains. But then this fund should go to the right hands, and people should be accountable for how this fund is spent.
Indeed, because it does seem, although that might not be a very sympathetic commentary, it does seem that, well, once we get into the dry seasons, the problem is out of sight, and unfortunately appears to be out of mind. That they say it is a peacetime that you prepare for war.
Exactly.
You would have thought that that would be the time to come up with the right measures, policies, actions, and all of that. But it's like, look, you were just saying those that are most prone. 10 Kogi local governments are still submerged.
Waters,
yes. I mean, it's a tragedy because you see houses, you see cars, entirely submerged. And how are these people going to recover?
Honestly, I don't know how they will recover because it appears to me that government is more interested in relief materials. I don't know why, when such funds could have been, diverted to preventing some of these casualties from happening. I think that, a lot of, work still needs to go into that. It's not about you camping people and then giving relief material. It's about engaging the people to solve this common problem that we find ourselves in. And I think that's the way we should go at a time like this. There are a lot of ecosystem based on natural solutions that can be advanced, to be able to curtail some of these excesses. But then, are we looking into this? Are we considering the fact that, people that you are telling to go, to a highland are losing, their ancestral and cultural background? Are you considering the trauma? Are you looking at the pains associated, like the topic of this discourse, with flooding? Are you looking at the economic burden, the time waste, the pressure on the economy? Are you looking at this thing holistically, as a nation? Are you looking at the health burden, water-related illnesses connected with flooding and the likes, and how these people, are being moved away from their cultural background and the trauma associated with it? So it's an holistic response that's expected, from government.
I don't know the extent to which, I would have, that is why government is battling right now. Everybody is, you saw in that clip, the Minister of Information, the Minister of Works, and all of those people were at pains to explain how much the federal government has actually done. But yeah, there's no way you can say ₦1 trillion, as we were talking about for ecological matters. There's no way you say that is chicken feed, even though it is still in naira. But it's going to, that is why Tony was angry.
Yeah.
That is why Tony in the UK was angry. He says, you people are talking about this. God forbid, we're going to come back and we're going to still be on this. And quite frankly, I'm at a loss as to what can be done. Look at that. Look at that. This is this is what happens in the West when they say hurricane something has hit and some waterway has broken its banks. That house, all of these houses, I don't know how they're going to dry out. And in Kogi, there are 10 local governments. Actually, we're not able to say where this particular one is, but it's a nationwide problem. But it's going to drain, because it won't be like this forever, right?
Yeah.
It's going to drain. But in the meantime, it would have caused incalculable damage. And the government is saying that, well, but that's what you're saying, that it's not, you don't just throw money. Mazi Okorafor called in to also say that it's not just about money. There should be some policy, some planning. But that planning seems to be, I may be wrong, I probably am, but as soon as these waters recede and we're into the dry season, unfortunately, it's business as usual.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's very funny to me. When I read the commissioner of Kogi State also said that, they prepared for it, but it still came to them as an emergency. I mean, it's very funny.
Well,
it's supposed to be an expected tragedy that you throw yourselves, the entire, of your being, to address it.
It's a very frustrating subject to discuss. Emeka in the UK. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Yero. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Okay, thank you, and hello to your guys.
Indeed.
Yeah, basically, I'm calling from the UK here in London. My issue, exactly what the gentleman who called earlier from the UK, I believe from London as well.
Tony.
I think when issues like this happen, Mr. Yero, you're doing a good job, but it is important and imperative you invite the people that collected those ecological funds, be it the governors, be it whoever, somebody who is directly involved in procurement and disbursement of those funds, right? I'm not saying the gentleman there is not making sense, but there are people that should be held responsible.
You're looking for somebody who can be held accountable, right?
Accountable, because in the UK here, when things happen, they hold the people. There is somebody, a minister, a governor, whoever who is involved in this issue, who touched that money, who that money run through his office or whatever. Somebody must be accountable for this. It's not like, we blame it on the climate change and all that stuff, right? Quite and good. And the way Nigerians are, the habit of dumping being on the gutters. But those gutters, you also have to question were they constructed properly. Because here in the UK, I'm not trying to say Nigeria must be UK overnight, no. But we must follow trends. We must follow other people who have succeeded to succeed. You know what I mean? So basically, what I'm saying is this. Those gutters, when they build those roads, it should be built such a way that the gutters are closed. You know what I mean? So they can be drained. There has to be a centralized drainage whereby those things fall into. So there's no way, even if you throw the trash on the road, that it will stop the water from flowing. So all of those things are the things that should be, people who are handling this money should be brought to that station or to any other platform to explain what they did with those money and how they are managing this problem. We should start holding people accountable. That's my point. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Emeka, for calling in. Interestingly, it's also the federal government's point, as one headline is saying, that states receive chunk of funds. Let them account. That's according to the federal government. Let them account. What did you do with that money? I don't know what would have been done or what should have been done or what could have been done, but you look at the extent of these floods and you begin to wonder, as you were saying, maybe it will ameliorate it. Not that it will, because I don't know what has happened to our, it happens all over the world, unfortunately, but maybe for different reasons. Drains, Emeka has just called in. Of course, I wish, Emeka is living in the UK, just as Tony is, and people that are living in those kind of areas, they're going to be angry when they see the situation of their home. They're just sojourning for a time, even if they have a British passport. They're just sojourning for a time. This is home, So they look at it and they're wondering. They're angry, and so they're wondering what are they doing there. As opposed, the other question that Emeka also brought up is, where are all those people that it is their day job? Bring them here. Let them come and tell us what they have been doing.
Yeah,
they won't come. As for ministers, well, you saw we had a surfeit of ministers in that report. There was the Minister of Information, there was the Minister of Works, and the Minister of Water Resources was also there. It's a problem, and I think I agree, as Emeka put it, that bring those people who get a salary from looking after this kind of thing,
what they've done,
and let them come and deliver a report of the service.
Account of their stewardship.
Yes, let them come and account for their stewardship. Yeah. What else can one say apart from that? The federal government says money has been released. Let these people account. I don't know. I understand the feeling. The federal government probably is feeling that, look, monies that have been released to the state by way of ecological vote, the federal government is now tasking those states to deliver an account. But you look at the extent of devastation, you begin to wonder, there's nothing wrong with asking them to account, but it looks like there's not enough money to throw at the situation that we are seeing by way of video there, right? Yet we can't lose hope. I don't know, but we have been told that it is the rivers and that we have been blessed with that are coming back to cause this devastation.
I mean, it's very funny. Well, I think there are a lot of questions about the regulatory governance and national capacity of the government, to address spatial planning. Who is looking at the way people build houses? Houses are being built on wetlands, are being built on waterways, and government is folding its hands. And going back to this ecological force, it appears to be that you have to wait till when people are not doing the right thing before you call them to order. In the first point of call, before you issue or give monies out, it should be clearly defined, the objectives. And then people should, before issuing a release, be made to sign to deliver on the terms and the obligations. So it appears to me that now saying that you account in the midst of a war is like a wrong battle for me. I think there is a lot that can be done, by government to improve their regulatory, governance, as regards flooding management in Nigeria. And having said that, there's also need for us as a country to even look at interboundary response, to managing flooding. What is our relationship with Cameroon, for instance? This water is not only contained in Nigeria. Nigeria is just like you rightly mentioned, tributaries. These waters are flowing somewhere. How are we dealing with other countries? Do we have just to wait for them to release their waters before we start running scatter as a nation to manage some of these effects that can be averted? So I think our relationship with, and then the response measures, how fast? We have agencies that are very swift to release predictions. And then the response measures of government is still very slow. Then what credit do we have to give? Are we giving them credit for the cautions and, the mountains that they built in our minds? Or how quick we are to respond and mitigate before it becomes a problem for us as a country?
Look at the statement that was going on, that was made by the gentleman on that report from Bielsa. No, it's not the Bielsa report. Another official had said in relation to these floodings that even though they had prepared for it, it still caught them unawares. So it's like predictions exist, but I suppose the dam has worsened the predictions that they were expecting. It's like that is a man error. But by the way, just for the heck of it, why would Cameroon open its dams, as it were? Given the devastation that it is going to cause, they have their own needs as well. They have their own problems that they were seeking to alleviate. That's probably likely to be the situation.
Well, I think I might not be able to speak for the reason why Cameroon will release the dam. I would rather nail my own country for not building the dam.
That was agreed.
That should accommodate the SSCs. Dancing Dam in Adamawa has been ongoing for 40 years. For 40 years.
And there's so many things that have been on for 40 years. Even the oil theft, that is reported. It's not yesterday now. So there are many things that have been going on, but the myriad of problems that people are facing, sometimes we present, that's what the minister the Minister of Information organized the event was highlighting in the government's successes in the area of infrastructure. But I don't know.
Yeah. I also think, and I mentioned it earlier, that there is need for bilateral discussions amongst nations. Cameroon is just here. I mean, what is the level of conversation that Nigerian responsible institutions are having with that of Cameroon? This shouldn't just catch us unaware. There should be some level of dialogue. What is your own level of preparedness to absorb these SSCs?
It probably exists. We probably, because it is the Minister Minister of Water Resources that was saying, hang on, it's not that, you can't blame Cameroon for it. There are other issues, I think the Katsina River, all sorts of, then the tributaries, the Benue tributaries. So he was explaining it. It's like everybody has gotten hold of the idea that Cameroon did us this thing. He says, no, don't go there. So there must have been
a level of communication.
There must have been.
Yes, but then
because they themselves can see the pictures. They can see the video pictures.
They can, and I mean, yes, you are right. But I think when you say we are preparing for these kind of emergencies, what exactly are we preparing for? I mean, are we preparing for the fluvial flooding, or for the pluvial flooding, or for the coastal flooding? How do I mean? When you say Kogi State, for instance, is preparing, to manage imminent flood, what type of flood is that? Is it that's expected from heavy rainfalls, or from that is expected from tributaries overflow or distributaries overflow? So we have to have an holistic preparation.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't hold my breath. I probably shouldn't have said that. I wouldn't hold my breath at all if you're waiting for that kind of information, because whichever of the three kinds of floodings, it has devastated our people.
Absolutely.
Bielsa, it is claimed, is entirely underwater. We see it all over the place. And quite frankly, what we're doing right now is that we're just wringing our hands in anguish. And the government is saying, hey, we released money now, we released $1 trillion naira, so let them make account. Well, all of that is good and well. But this kind of a situation that we're seeing right here, I don't know. We're just going to have to leave it here. But we couldn't but bring attention to it, I think, because it's confronting us, it's staring us in the face, and it is what is going on right now as we speak.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, Ada in Jos. Good morning, ma'am.
Hello.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, Yuri. I hope you're still on flood. Are you still on flood?
Yes, now we're there because the flood is still with us.
Yes, what I'm asking. You have moved to the other
okay.
Those of us outside.
Okay.
Yes, what do you know? The topic.
I get you.
Okay, now that's okay. I'm calling from Jos Plateau State. Mr. Yuri, I know the person from London was really mad.
Yes.
One should be mad, but that's not to say that we have not been doing something. The thing is that we have not done enough. And the ecological funds, I don't know whether they embezzle it or whatever, because it's a perennial thing. It always comes, So I think the greatest problem we're having is that we have to tackle this issue headlong. We have to build canals to accommodate rainwater or any other water that may be released from neighboring countries or whatever. That is, they have to dredge the major rivers in Nigeria. They have to dredge all of them so they can be deeper. They are a bit shallow now to accommodate so much water. That is the problem we're having. Then when you talk about people relocating, I ask myself, where do we have flood estates? Most of the states, they should start building flood estates. If they started from even 2012, when we had that particular one that happened then, and now this one is even worse than that one. At least to have a flood estate where people can move to temporarily. Then there should be a political will to demolish houses on the floodplains, the waterways, the river banks. We don't have that political will. They should do that. That's the problem.
Yes.
Then again, look at another dimension, Mr. Yuri. I don't know whether you saw that one that happened. That is this one that, to the extent that in Bayelsa, it went and exhumed corpses. You understand? Exhumed it. Look, I had good symptoms when I saw this thing. The exhumed corpses from a cemetery. And you know what that
yes,
out. There's
yes.
going to be epidemic.
One heard of that
so the
gory story.
They should do something. The health sector should do something about that. If not, there's going to be a lot of disease over there now.
Exactly.
Because it's really unfortunate. Public spirited individuals should help. The government should do all they can now to make sure that it doesn't happen. I mean, we can mitigate it, not that it will not happen. You see, abroad, I used to see the way their own happen. You know, we are lucky in Nigeria that if we do what we are supposed to do, it will not be that serious. But we don't. Because the kind of rescue they have in abroad, helicopter, everything at the same time. That even if you lose somebody, you won't feel it so much. You know, you see that they have done a lot to rescue the person. But in Nigeria, the rescue response is so slow. It's the relief that they are interested in. Now, the relief materials, it doesn't go around. And sometimes it still goes into some people's pockets.
That's as Mazio Korafo was saying.
Let's not give up on this country. Yeah, let's not give up on Nigeria. But it will get better.
Thank you very much. And you tend to end your contributions with that particular hopeful phrase, you know, it will be well. And she brought up that other point about there were reports that corpses were exhumed. How are corpses exhumed? But yeah, the people noted corpses flowing. That's just a sort of a personal, you know, human angle interest to this particular problem. We're going to have to leave it here. Otherwise, it's just going to be woes upon woes of people calling in, expressing their frustration. Government, too, is, you know, saying that, and let them account for what we have already done. We're not saying that we don't have a challenge. We do, but it is what it is. I just want to thank you very much, Martins Olamide Ogunlade. I've done your name in all sorts of variations, but the three of them are there. Olamide Ogunlade is a compound name. Yeah. That's the surname. Thank you very much for coming on and you know, commenting. And also thanks to all the viewers that have also called in, especially those that are anguished in the UK. We are anguished here too, but those in the UK are particularly anguished. First it was Tony, and then it was Emeka. Thank you all for your comments. That's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.